Hey, you guys ever want to get the film look in your videos, but you can't be bothered to go through the slight inconvenience of selling a kidney and purchasing a 70mm IMAX camera? Well, luckily I have some tips. First of all, this otter needs some pets. So one like is one pet, please help me battle the algorithm. Shameless plug. So I use film emulation a lot. I find it super useful. It's fun as a tool when I'm dialing in a grade for a project, especially with weddings, short films, and music videos, which are the main things that I do. So today I will show you how I get a film look without any extra plugins, and I will also show you how to do it using a program called Dehancer. So Dehancer has finally added support for Windows 11, and they have approached me to make a video giving my thoughts, because they're very useful. I'm useful. So I want to first talk about the things that I like in a film effect. I like soft colors, I like a slightly washed out look, I like the grain, I love bloom. Bonus points for an 8mm style jitter effect as well. It just feels so warm and nostalgic, like a hug. Now, these things aren't always necessarily indicative of all film. Some come with lens choices, some is lighting, and some are simply like a grade or developing choice. But having that versatility is exactly what I love in a grain emulation platform. Sometimes I want a subtle grain, sometimes I want something that screams vintage. Usually I'm somewhere in the middle. So this video is gonna be part tutorial and part review in a way. So let's dive in. Gotta get the pizza in. And now he's staying in the starlight underneath the moonlight, oh no. So first off, I have my clips in Premiere. I wanna do two kinds of edits today, one with a bit of a subtle old school look and one that's super punchy and vibey. So I already color corrected the footage, so it's relatively neutral. I've been shooting in Cinetone for the past few months and I've been loving it. Little tip, expose the skin tone highlights to 65% in camera using the zebras. You nail it every time, trust me. Just don't even need to, and you can have that one for free. So for the first look, we're gonna do this without any third-party plugins. So we've got our base clip here as promised, color corrected to what I thought looks pretty good. You can disagree, I guess. Leave a comment or like, you know, constructive feedback. So we're gonna go to noise in our effects panel. I'm just gonna double click that bad boy. And then I'm gonna add some noise. Surprise. Now I find that anything over 20% here doesn't look nice, neither does color noise. I'm just gonna click that as well. So I'll show you like 25%. It's like that doesn't look like real film noise. So I'm gonna drop this down to something like 12%. Ooh. So it's like not too overbearing in the shadows at all, but I can see some noticeable noise up in the highlights. And that's kind of what we're going for. So next thing I wanna add is some bloom. So to duplicate our clip, I'm gonna hold Alt or Option for all of you Mac 1%ers. I will drag the clip up to make a duplicate. Now I am gonna add some Gaussian blur. And again, I don't want to do anything super overbearing. I want it to be subtle, but still dreamy. I'm gonna try blurriness of 10. Now, let's change our blend mode to lighten, and just a little before and after. I think that looks pretty darn nifty. So the final thing, it's looking, you know, slightly what I'd expect for film, but I do want to change the colors a little here. So what I'm gonna do is get an adjustment layer, new adjustment layer, drag that onto our timeline, and then I'm gonna go and get Lumetri. So for these types of looks, I love a slight roll off to the curves. So something like this, but still preserving some of my highlights there. Something like that. Very subtle, very subtle. I do like my blues as well to be a little, oh no, we're in the right spot. My blues to be a little more teal. So I'm gonna shift these up just a little bit and you can kind of just see what that's changing. A little more teal. And I like my yellows to be a little more orange. I'm doing a pretty wide adjustment here. Something like that. Looks very neat, very nice. And then by going back to the main RGB curve here, by just playing around with the highlights of the red curve specifically, you can make the image feel more warm or more cool, just in like these little slight adjustments. So because I'm going for something that is a little more warm, I am gonna bring that red up a little bit, just like that. Now, extra bonus points if you add some posterized time. This one absolutely poops on the GPU, but it's pretty great. I find 18 is quite nice, and then we'll play that back. Now, you might be saying to yourself, well, heck, that's good. We don't need to do anything else. Can it be better? And I'd say maybe. We're gonna enable Dehancer. There's lots of tools for adjusting color temp, contrast, etc. But I'm a brown noser, and I already did it. So we're gonna skip right down to the film selection, and that is right here. Now, there's a lot to choose from, and they all look really different from each other. I find for this kind of look, I enjoy the Kodak Gold, so we're gonna go to Kodak Gold 200. And as you can see right off the bat, it already does look pretty nice. Like, it's pretty similar coloring in like just one click. And I like that. Anything that simplifies my workflow is huge. That's like 6 steps I get to skip now. So 6 steps I get to skip. Now, one thing I do like about this plugin is that you can kind of just work your way down the list, item after item. So you enable these different options. So something like film developer and film compression allow us to play with the colors, play with the contrast, and how they interact with each other. So if I enable this, you can see I'm kind of changing my white point in a way. Expand is kind of like the opposite ends of the curves tool with the blacks and whites adjustments. The color head adjustment that we've got here allows for finer color adjustments if you want warmer or cooler, for example. So we're gonna go in, warm up the image a touch with a shadows tone boost. We're gonna play around with the yellow blue adjustment a little bit. So I'm going to just yellow this just a little. So again, look at the trees in the background there. As I adjust this, here's kind of going to opposite ends, but something like that, just to give a little boost back here. And then the shadows tone, gonna warm that a little as well. And just a little, very subtle, very, very small adjustment. I'm not doing anything super sweeping. Now, one of the big things about this plugin is the film grain, and this is kind of what our noise plugin was doing for us earlier. But the ability to have options is something I can't do with the stock plugin that comes with Premiere, or I'm done, which is absolutely a strong possibility. So for this one, I am gonna stick with a 16 mil. I'm probably gonna go with a 16 mil 50, I think. And again, just looking at the highlights up here, seeing how that looks, again, enable. That looks really good. That looks really good. And finally, to end this, we're gonna skip over halation and go right to bloom. Ooh, you know they got this in there. I was stoked when I saw this. So we're just gonna enable it and then play around with some of the different options. 8 mil, 16 mil, 35, 65, 70. Has anyone used like a 70 mil camera? Pretty sweet, I would love to. I think I'm actually gonna go with the 8 on that, and just again a little before and after. I'd say these are pretty darn close. So, I mean, right off the hop, you can see like there's a lot of options, right? And you can customize this a lot more than I could with just the stock plugins, which I like. It may seem a little bit overwhelming, but I'm not an expert at the film emulation by any means, and so it didn't seem too hard. I actually really like playing around with some of the other things, like the film breath. So this one, you can really see it on the 8 mil as it plays through. You can see how all the shadows and the lighting keeps changing. Pretty neat. So at the very least, it's fun to play around with, add some dynamics to our clips. Okay, so this second look is gonna be punchy. I'm looking for grain, I'm looking for saturated colors, some rich blacks. So again, I've already color corrected this clip of a guy reacting to me showing him a cool rock. Now this is Drives the Common Man, and here's a clip of his music. It's really good. So again, starting off with our stock plugins. So I'm gonna add some noise, same as last time. Only gonna go 5% though. We'll clip off the color noise, don't want that. Gonna add, again, 5% this time because I want it to be a little bit more subtle with the noise. And then I'm gonna add an adjustment layer with Lumetri color. So I'm not gonna add bloom to this one, so I don't need to duplicate my clip. Alrighty, so I wanna add some contrast, and I'm gonna do that with our curves. So I'm gonna bring down the shadows and the blacks by a little bit here, and I'm gonna roll off the highlights, the whites, I should say. But I do want to preserve our highlights a little bit because I want it to be punchy. Now I'm going to boost my yellows here. I'm actually going to go right over the green. There's all those pretty trees in the back there. And then I'm going to shift the yellows to be a little bit more green. But not too much. I still want it to look real. I'm also gonna add a little bit of orange where the skin tones generally lie. Red as well. Still want it to feel balanced in the face. Might even add a little bit more. Yeah, something like that is pretty perfect. So that was my input. Here's after adding all of my effects. Now on to Dehancer. We're flying. You guys already know how to do half the stuff, so we're gonna just fly right through it here. All right, so I've already got my color adjusted clip. And we've got the clip of this young man sucking on a sour candy. Okay, so for this one, again, I'm just gonna fly through it a little bit quicker. So I'm gonna start with Fujicolor Superia 200, which is this guy here. A little more pink than our edit, you might say, but we're gonna do some adjustments to bring it a little closer to what I had with our other edit there. And lots of other stocks to choose from. again, with all the customization options, you can kind of dial in different looks pretty easily, honestly. Okay, so I need to add some contrast, so I'm gonna go to our film developer here. I'm gonna enable it. That'll allow me to see the difference. So I'm gonna add some contrast here to start. Maybe 20, no, hell more. Something like 30, right about there. That looks pretty good. And then our gamma correction, I don't wanna lose all of the highlight stuff there. So I'm gonna bring this down a little bit. Good. And then I do want a little more subtle of the whites. So I'm going to go to film compression and enable, and then change our white point to about 4.0. So, and then we can look at the cheek here, and so onto our film grain. I'm gonna go with 35 because again, I want that like subtle look. So we're just gonna go 35 on the 50 ISO. Again, I can see it in the sky. I can tell that there's some grain here going on as well, but it's not overbearing. Okay, so then I'm gonna go down to our color head, this guy, and I'm going to do a little bit of a yellow shift here. Oh, gotta enable it first. God, stupid. Again, thinking subtle, something like that. Looks really nice. And I am wanting a little bit more of the color. So let's, I've already got it open here, but under our film developer, I'm gonna do a little color boost, something like 5 or so. See, in the Dehancer, it's very slight, it's very subtle, but I like the white roll off here. I think that looks really sharp. And I like, again, just more green customization. This will definitely get you by for a lot of things, but this one kind of goes the extra mile. So I'm just gonna drop these presets that I've just made onto a couple of other clips just for funsies, just to see what they look like. They call me Posture Pete. Now, I'm not an expert at film emulation, but I do use some sort of film stock, at least for some clips in every wedding I deliver, in a lot of music videos, and on the occasional short film. It's really useful. And with this, along with playing around with Dehancer for the past week or so, I've been trying to see how it fits into my video workflow on a day-to-day basis. And I gotta say, like, it definitely simplifies things in my workflow. I have used stock plugins, I have used other emulation software for a few years now, and the grain emulation here is very convincing. Plus, I love all of the other features that I get to play around with this. Being able to add bloom, adding halation, even film damage and film breath are super fun without having to throw like a clip overlay, like dig through my other folders, and that simplifies my workflow, and I appreciate that. It's awesome. I love that everything seems to be organized in a single plugin, and it's pretty simple. Most of the drop-down menus don't have, 30 options per, and they're pretty easy to tell apart. Now, there are some cons. This is quite intense on the GPU. I've got a 2070, and that can render out things pretty quickly, but I definitely found myself having to render out my effects clips to actually get playback going. I would love to see a time adjustment feature where I can do like a dropped frame type of look, kind of like that 8mm. Doing that in the plugin would be nice, but again, we're already like up against the wall with the GPU, so I'm not a programmer. That's not my job to figure out. And then I think the last con is that it is one of the pricier options out there for sure. Now to help with that, if you use my code, you get 10% off, and it does help support my channel. So to think about this plugin and all of the things that it does compared to a cheaper plugin, I would definitely assess how much you need all of the different options and the customization tools, how much you need things like Bloom or the halation or film breath, like those kinds of things that you're maybe having to add manually. But if you're just doing personal projects, if budget is an issue, you know, we've gone through some stock workarounds that also look pretty good, I think. I am biased. I do like the creator a little bit. Well, that's all I've got for you at this point. Hopefully you learned something, and if not, sorry. Bye.